Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on this beautiful Monday, November 11th. We are coming to you live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studio on this Veterans Evening. Thank all you guys out there, guys and gals, all you veterans, appreciate you. I was just thinking before we started the show that, my dad was he just he passed away this year at 80, and he had spinal arthritis that he got when he was in college, and it I guess it must have been Vietnam. I don't know what, but he was um, he was kicked out. Whatever, he wasn't allowed to participate in that at that time, and it was kind of so it's kind of interesting at my house. I was just kind of working through it right there. Is like, we didn't have anybody in the immediate family that was involved in the armed forces. I had an appointment to the Air Force Academy when I was a senior in high school. That's about as close as it got right there. But it was all for the wrong reasons, right? It was just to go to play football at the Air Force Academy. And that didn't ended up panning out like I thought it was going to. So um, it's it's uh, it's there's not immediate family members. I can't think of any cousins. That's not true. I had a cousin that was in the Navy for a long time, and served and retired and was a Navy recruiter. Did a lot of that work in the Navy for a long time. So uh, maybe sometimes I'm not as verbal as some people are about Veterans Day, but I appreciate those people that served. I appreciate those people that went out there and put their life on the line for all of us. And thank you from all of us who get to do all this stuff that we take for granted sometimes. I appreciate your sacrifice that you gave for our country. So thank you guys. Um, yeah, so we're here tonight is our Taking Health to Church night, if I can say it without biting my tongue. Taking health to church. So we're going to get into a new series, Running on Empty, and I think you guys will like it. I think this first one is going to be great. If I can verbalize it as much as I want to, we'll probably enjoy this show tonight. It'll be a good show um, because running on empty, we do that a lot. And I got a check. I kind of got a check with this whole thing this weekend, listening to this sermon. So um, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good show. I think you guys will enjoy it. So we'll get to it here shortly. There's just a few sentences that I heard today, and I just want to touch on them quickly. And it's just repetition, right? So this first part of the show probably just should be called the repetition show uh, part of it. But there's a couple of little things. There's new people to the show that's listening to us for the first time that they just haven't had a chance to hear all this, and I don't have all the shows cataloged, but you can go all the way back to September 2023 on my Facebook page, and you can just start listening to those shows. And we've got all this stuff, basically everything that I know has been covered in some form or fashion. But the the few sentences that I did get was just about the and I don't want to get too deep into it. Maybe tomorrow night we could get a little bit further into them. But the refined carbohydrates seem to be a confusing thing. The what is a refined carbohydrate? What is a not so refined carbohydrate? And what's a complex carbohydrate? And then the other one was we were talking about some Pop Tarts today, and let me see if I can. I know Dan Murphy. I just did a show not too long ago on erythritol. I don't even know how to spell that. If I could get it right. No, that's not it. Let me look it up because I know we did one. There was a Pop Tart version. Yeah, almost had that right. Um, there was a Pop-Tart version of that. Supposedly, it's like some sort of legends or something like that. Pop-Tart. I mean, I know you guys have heard me talk about Pop-Tarts a bunch. No, it was xylitol. It was xylitol that we were talking about. And so I'm gonna have to look that up and see if that erythritol, if that's got some problems. But the xylitol PF, the xylitol is thrombotic and increases cardiovascular risk. And so I don't think erythritol was mentioned. 8 sugar alcohols are approved for the human consumption. Erythritol is one of those right there. Xylitol, erythritol, and maltitol are the most widely used in the food industry. Erythritol has 70% of the sweetness of sugar, but only 5% of the calories. So let me just see if there was anything on here. I'll go back and look at this before we get on the show tomorrow, and see if we can break down erythritol. All this is talking about is xylitol having a negative effect on things. So there may actually be some Pop-Tarts. if that erythritol is not a problem, I'll look it up. But if that's not a problem, I think we might have found some Pop-Tarts that are almost acceptable out there. So we were talking about that. But we were talking about refined carbohydrates and what makes your blood sugar go up and how does that affect your insulin. And I would encourage you that I don't want to go all the back through it tonight, but I want to encourage you to know the difference between the two and understand that refined carbohydrates make your blood sugar go up. And if there's 2 things we can do on our show, there's 2 things, and you can watch, you'll go back and listen to the show and then wait 10 years or go back 10 years ago and 15 years ago, actually, in 2009, when Dr. Murphy started teaching me this stuff, 2009, it's been the same story since 2009. Control your insulin and control your omega-6-3 ratio. If you could do those things. So what are we going to do? We're going to take a piece of sourdough bread. We're going to put some peanut butter on it. And we're going to put put a banana on the top of it, right? Okay, that's our dessert. No, that's not it. Why? The sourdough bread, maybe. That's okay, maybe. But the banana is, the omega-6 count in that peanut butter is going to be super high. And then when we put that banana on top of it, we're going to spike our blood sugar. And then here we go. We're out the gate. So we just want to make sure that we're controlling our blood sugar by keeping our complex carbohydrates up. Asparagus is a complex carbohydrate. Purple potatoes are a complex carbohydrate. White potatoes are not. French fries are not. Sweet potatoes are better, but they're not as good as purple, but they're not as bad as white. From a standpoint of insulin, that's what we're trying to do. Keep the bread out of it. Eat the bacon and eggs for breakfast. Leave the tortillas alone. Right? Keep those out of the mix because that's going to increase your blood sugar, and that's going to cause the problems. And yes, once you get type 2 diabetes, you can reverse that type 2 diabetes and get on down the road. So there's those things that are, and you might ask, well, is it really this important? I looked at the KCBD page on Facebook this afternoon when I got back from lunch. Just for a second, I like to just see what's going on in the community, and I noticed a very dear lady that's a teacher at one of our schools right outside of Lubbock in a little town. She passed away, and I used to know that lady years ago, and she was a super lady. She was a really nice human being, and she just suddenly passed away at 60. And it's like, I don't know anything about what was going on with her. I don't know what she was dealing with or anything like that. We just take for granted the days that we have on earth. And we act like that like we're just got lots of days left. And we really should stop for just a second and consider the fact that, especially on a Veterans Day, right? It's like, you don't know especially those veterans, they didn't know they were in a place where a lot of those guys were in a situation in life where they might not last 15 minutes at some point, might not last 30 minutes. It might have been a very volatile place to be in. And I think sometimes it'll go right along with the story that we're teaching tonight. But when we should appreciate these moments that we have. And we should try to do, if we really were mature enough, we would try to take advantage of every moment that we have so that we could try to make the best out of our lives, right? And that goes along with the story, and I'm just going to get into it because this lesson, for you new people, it's taking health to church is what we do. We attend Hillside Church here in Lubbock, and we take the message that's being taught. Yesterday we watched it on TV, and we take the message that's being taught and we bring it to life on Monday night in the form of health. So we take the sermon from Hillside Church on Sunday and we bring it to life on a Monday night, and we call it Taking Health to Church. That's what this show is all about tonight. And this one is something that a lot of us could really, really learn about. Okay, so we could get kind of reset with this. And the series is called Running on Empty. We came off this long series of counting your blessings, and we are going into this series. We're fixing to hit Thanksgiving. We're fixing to hit the end of the year, and sometimes we get a little run down, we get a little tired, and we start talking about running on empty. And this Running on Empty series is kind of, there were lots of stuff here. We can feel drained and empty, right? And we can feel depleted spiritually, but we can also feel depleted physically. And I'm going to try to tie these two things in together tonight. I'm going to try to take the spiritual concepts of running on empty, and I'm going to try to bring them right together with the health concepts of running on empty. And I hope I do a good enough job with it. So he said, the pastor yesterday, he said, okay, how do we actually, he said, I'm not talking about spiritually and I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about your car, your actual vehicle. It's like, how do you get to run on it? What are some of the things that might make you run out of gas? Like, what are things that could cause you to run out of gas if you were actually in your car, right? And he went through a whole list of them. He's like, well, and he used it as an example if you were taking a road trip. So we're just going to take a road trip to Dallas. We're just going to drive from Lubbock to Dallas. That's 5 hours. We're just going to take this road trip, and we're going to get ready to go. And then what would be some of the reasons we might run out of gas, right? Number one, we don't start with a full tank. That's fair enough. We don't start with a full tank. We forgot to fill up. We just took off. We forgot to do that. I did that once. I did that once coming back from Roswell. I drove to Roswell, and then for some reason when we left Roswell, I just took off, and I forgot to get gas. Like, I've been driving to Roswell and from Lubbock to Roswell since 1990. And this was last year. And I just forgot for some reason. I just took off and I forgot to get gas. And if you forget to get gas when you leave Roswell, it's 70 miles to Tatum. Like, there ain't nothing out there between the two of them, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. It was like, that might be, it's a scary feeling to run on empty, especially out there. You don't stop to refuel. That's what happened to me. I just didn't stop. That might be another reason that we run on empty. We're using the car the wrong way. Like, we're revving up the engine, or we're the RPMs or something. Like, we're not using it the way that it's designed to be used. We're driving too fast. Maybe we're going too fast. And that's causing us to run out of fuel quicker. We're not paying attention to the gauges. We do that all the time in Leslie's car. We just forget to look down. I don't know why, but for some reason when I'm driving my car, I always know how much gas is in my car. But when I'm driving Leslie's car, I just forget to look. And then all of a sudden it's like, dude, we're out of gas. Like, dadgummit, I did that. I actually ran out of gas 3 or 4 years ago. disgusting. Just driving around, just forgot to look and just ran out of gas. Had to call my daughter to come bring me a gas tank. So I'm 50 years old, man. It's like whatever. I think it was probably 2 years ago, maybe no, it's been longer than that because it was in a different vehicle. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but I remember where it was. It was over on Quaker, is out there by like Vitality Bowl or the Reserve or whatever. It was in that parking lot right there. We had to pull in there because we ran out of gas. And I was like, dude, what the heck? Why? Why wasn't paying attention to the gauges? Maybe sometimes we just say, well, the limits don't apply to me. Like, it doesn't. I'm not one of those people that needs to fill up. I don't know where to find a filling station. Done that before. Just take off. Well, there's got to be one right around the corner, and then there wasn't. And then, well, then maybe it's on the next exit, and there wasn't. And then there's like, man, not knowing how to refill the tank. Now, I actually haven't had that problem, but I could understand maybe. I did put a gasoline in a diesel fuel one time, diesel engine. So it wasn't that I didn't know. It wasn't that I didn't know how to fill up the tank, but I wasn't paying attention as to what I was doing. But I've done that. Dad said, hey, take your mom's car down there and fill it up with gas. And that's exactly what I did. I was about 15 or 16 years old, and we lived on a ranch in a double wide mobile home, and you had to drive down to the barns area and we had a gas tank back there, and I did exactly what he told me to do. I drove down there. I drove up to that gas tank. I put gas in that diesel, my mom's diesel Buick Park Avenue diesel. And here comes Dad flying down the road, and he's honking his horn, and he's like, turn it off. And I'm like, I turned it off. I didn't know what I'd done. At that point, I still didn't know what I'd done. And then he's like, did you put gasoline in that diesel car? And I was like, uh-oh. Yep, I did. And then he just pointed out all the places on the car that it said diesel fuel only. That was he wasn't happy with me. I didn't run the engine. We got it turned off. They fixed it. Wasn't that big of a deal, but not knowing what you're doing or not paying attention might be one of the reasons that you mess up the fuel. And then how many wait until the warning light comes on? So you actually had the congregation raise your hand. If you're one of those people that waits all the way down until the warning light comes on your vehicle. And then he was like, all right, all you guys raise your hand if you're like a quarter of a tank people. And then he said, all right, all you guys raise your hand if you're half a tank people. And it was like, okay, now you guys, we've got a class for y'all, which I thought was really funny. If you're filling up and it's half a tank, maybe you're a little OCD or something like that. And maybe we need to have another show later on in the week to address some of those issues. But no, seriously. I could just see it coming, right? He was talking about this from a spiritual standpoint, and he was trying to set it up. And Tommy does a great job. Tommy Politz, he's a former head pastor. Now he's stepped down, and he's a senior associate, whatever pastor. But he does such a great job of setting this stuff up. And I could just see, just knowing the title of the show, Running on Empty, and then all of these things. And he's like, what is it in us that thinks that we don't have to stop and fill up? And he started talking about spiritually. When you run out of gas, it affects everyone around you. When you run out of gas spiritually, it affects, if you're a parent, it affects your children. It affects your spouse. If you're a boss, it affects your employees. If you're an employee, it affects all the other employees and your boss and your customers. Like when I run out of gas spiritually, it affects Leslie and the kids and you guys and my patients that come into my office and the people that work for me. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that you touch. You're not in this thing by yourself. None of us are in this thing by yourself. As lonely as you think you might be, as lonely as you think you might be out there in the world, you are not in this by yourself. That we've got extension between us. We have relationships, and we have people that, whether they rely on us directly or not, they still are going to be affected by us when we run out of gas spiritually. And I just started thinking about that with health. I'm like, man, that is so true. That I've seen it with my grandparents. I saw it with my dad. I've seen it with my patients. I've seen it with myself. I mean, like going through COVID and being at home for 11 days, and then it just hit like on Thursday. So we took Friday and Saturday. So we took the whole week off for 2 weeks. It's like, at my house, if I'm not working, if I lose my health, like, that's not a good situation. It's like I am the center of the financial production. Leslie runs the front, but she can't run the front if we don't have any patients here to get adjusted. Like, it's like when I run myself down and I don't and I lose my health, it's going to create a ripple effect that's going to affect a lot of people. And I think you're exactly the same way, whether you realize it or not. That when you run yourself down and you're running on empty. One of my girls tonight, she said, sorry I couldn't be here last week because I got a head cold that I got from my husband who brought it home. And it's really funny, every time he has a head cold, he brings it home to me and gives it to me. But every time I have a head cold, he doesn't get it. And I was like, I wonder if it has something to do with the internal environment inside your own body. First of all, we should change that language. Someone doesn't give you a cold. You take the cold. That's how it works. But we don't want to say that, right? We don't want to say that because then it puts responsibility on us. I see patients all day long, every day. How come I'm not sick all the time? I'm not sick all the time because there must be some sort of ability that my body has not to take it. It's not. When did I get sick with COVID? After I went to Las Vegas and ate sugar for 4 days. Ate ice cream, messed up my microbiome, messed up my immune system. Then all of a sudden, my body was weak and I wasn't able to fight off the virus. It's been way healthier these last 32 months with no sugar. It's been way healthier. And so, spiritually, when you run out of gas, it affects everyone. Physically, when you run out of gas, it affects everyone. So he made this picture of a dashboard. He called it our spiritual dashboard. And I just put in parentheses and called it a health dashboard. And he said, and I might not get this word right, but he said there's 3 words that he wanted to teach in the spiritual dashboard. He said if you were going to look on your dashboard, because he was using it, with gauges and all that sort of thing, like empty and full and all that. So he said, like, if you were to look up on your spiritual dashboard, you would see 3 words. And you guys have to give me, like, I don't know for sure if it's Shema. I know the second 2, Shabbat and Shalom. Those are the 3 words that the pastor put on the board yesterday. Shema, Shema. I'm not sure. Listen to the Lord. That was the first thing. Second one was Shabbat, rest in the Lord. And the third one was Shalom, peace with the Lord. And these are all Old Testament stuff, right? This is all from, I guess that's, from the very beginning of the Jewish language or whatever. Those are 3 words, but it's like, listen to the Lord, rest in the Lord, and peace with the Lord. And so he wanted to talk about just the Shema. And if I'm saying that wrong, please, I apologize. I'm not I heard it. I heard him say it one way, and then last night we started watching The Chosen, and Caitlin's tried to get us to watch The Chosen all the time. But this was so impressing to me. It got my attention, and it was like this lesson was so impactful. The way that he presented it yesterday, and I just think that if you're humble enough to keep learning, then you got a chance to keep improving your life. And I want to be that way personally. I want to be humble enough to keep learning. I just want to keep learning. I want to be able to listen to what somebody says, run it through the filter of my brain, see if it makes some sense, and see if I can bring it back and continue to see, like, okay, yeah, like I learned something from that lesson. And so when we get back from the break, we got to take a break, but we're going to get into Shema, listening to the Lord, and we're going to break down Deuteronomy, and we're going to get into Mark, Psalms, and 1 Corinthians, and we're going to talk about some of these things that might help us refill our tank so that we can quit running on empty from a spiritual standpoint and from a health and wellness standpoint. So, hey, if you got questions, you want to send me a text, 806-794-0400. You can send me a chat on Facebook or YouTube or X, whatever you're listening to. And if you got any comments or questions, send them to us. Otherwise, let's take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages. I might ought to try to look up. I want to break. I want to take this break so that the people on the radio can stay with us. But see if I can get the actual way you pronounce that word. It says Shema is here in the Hebrew word that begins the most important prayer in Judaism. Yeah, so to hear. I guess that's what that word means. If you don't know what it means, you just don't know what it means, right? Like, okay. And if you haven't really broken it down or studied it, it was relatively new to me. I don't know that I've ever really studied that. See if I can find it in the definition. Or how you say it. Can't really find it right now. Let's see. Shema. That's what the dictionary says. Merriam and Webster dictionary says Shema. So that's what I'm going with. Shema. I'm going to stick with that. And it was so funny because we watched The Chosen last night, and we started off. I think it was the third, might have been the third episode of The Chosen, and Jesus, he went over that whole thing. He asked those little kids. He's like, "Do y'all know Shema?" And they all started quoting it, and I was like, "Where was I? How did I miss that whole thing?" But it was so funny that was what was the lesson on the show last night, and we had just gotten a great sermon over that whole thing. So funny how those things work out, isn't it? All right, let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're taking health to church tonight, and we're getting into Shema, I looked it up on the internet. That's how the internet, the Webster's Dictionary says it. Shema. So that's what we're going with. Listen to the Lord. And it's Deuteronomy, right? It's Deuteronomy 4, starts at Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, and it runs depending on how far you want to go with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read it, and then you guys probably already know it, but and I know that you've heard it before. But Deuteronomy 6, verse 4: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you are walking along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them to your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. And so the first part that he pointed out, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And he was trying to make a point because there was I guess, polytheistic society that they were in back in the day. We had all kinds of gods, right? And the story was, hey, there's only one God. And so I started thinking about that from a health standpoint. And I started thinking about how many gods we have in health. How many things, because we have so much information right at our fingertips. One of my ladies even said that today. She's like, we've got so much information. We don't even have to type it in. We could just say it to Siri. Hey Siri, tell me how far is it from here to Denver? That's what we were talking about. And so it was like, one of the things that gets confusing to us is, and overwhelming to us, is that there's so much information these days that if we're not careful, we're not listening to the one source. And the one source is definitely not me. I am one of the noise out there in the world that you could be. I could be creating noise for you. If the Lord is telling you something, if the voice that's telling you something is leading you in a way, that spirit that's leading you in a way, then maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm one of the many problems. And maybe Dr. Huberman's one of the many problems, and Dr. Peterson's one of the many problems. And there's so many people on, Dr. Hyman and all of the people, Dr. Gilchrist, maybe, and maybe there's so much information. Like one of my girls told me that she's not taking her vitamin D anymore because somebody said if you're not taking something else, it's not working. And it's like, where do you get your information from? From a health and wellness standpoint, where does information come from? How do you know what's real anymore? How do you know what is right and what is wrong from a health and wellness standpoint, right? It could cause us to get so confused that we're really not listening. We're not listening to the truth when we hear it. And that's kind of where Shema was about. Listen to the Lord. Listen to the one source, the one source of health. Because I can tell you, that's going to be, from a foundational standpoint, to build your health on the rock. It's going to be the one thing that you're going to want to do. If you really are interested in health, which I think you either are or you're going to be, or you've just given it up and you said, to heck with it, I'm done and I don't care anymore, right? There's a whole group of people that's done that. They're just like, screw this, I don't care anymore. Just pass the beer. Like, okay, fine. You're giving up. You're throwing in the towel. You're not competing anymore. You don't care. You don't care about anybody around you. You don't care about your effect on the rest of the world. You're just done and gone. Okay, I hope you die quickly. I really do. Because I've seen the effects of losing your health. And I really don't believe that a lot of people want to lose their health. I really don't believe that. I don't believe that you really want to lose your health. I believe that you either haven't paid attention to your health, or you don't understand the fundamental truths that go along with health because of so many deceiving things that have been taught out there, right? So what this passage in Deuteronomy is saying, listen, hear. I don't know if that's the same word. Hear and listen. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Now, it gives an action step to hearing, which I thought was quite interesting. The, the scripture says, love our God, love, the Lord is one. Love the Lord, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. It's like, if you want to fill your tank, if you want to get fulfilled life, if you want to get unending energy, if you want to have this energy that just goes and it just works, it's like, listen to this. Listen to the Lord. Shema. Listen to this. Love the Lord with all your heart. Okay, so it got my attention yesterday. It's like, dude, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit there and look at your phone all night long? Are you just going to scroll through YouTube and not TikTok, Twitter and Instagram and just mindlessly scroll? Like, what is that? Is that loving the Lord with all your heart? Is that really focusing in on the things that you should be doing? And so that's what made me stop. I was like, I just turned the football off last night. Like I turned the Cowboy game off before they got blown out. And I was like, hey, I really want to watch the Chosen. I just want to listen to that, because it just happened to be that one of the Instagram reels that popped up on my deal is the Chosen. And it's Jesus talking in the Chosen. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just watch that. So we just did that for the rest of the night. We just sat and watched 5-6 episodes of The Chosen last night to get it started. And you guys have probably already all seen that. It's old news. Caitlin's all seen it before. And it was like, but there was an active role in listening. Do y'all think that's interesting? Like, do you think it's interesting that the scripture is to listen? It says, here, listen to this, and then take action. Yeah, I'm gonna have to break this down, Gary. What you're saying right there, all that, I'm gonna have to breathe that for a second, but and kind of understand that. But yeah, taking action is something that we want to do. That we want to make sure, from a health and wellness standpoint, that's what we want to do. We want to take action. I got to change the batteries. You guys hang on. So then that was the first thing. I just thought, okay, what am I going to do if I'm really going to love the Lord with all my heart? Am I going to spend all this time wasting this time on our social media? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's more productive. And that's carried through me all day. I want to spend my time that's being productive, and I want to listen to the Lord, and I want the Lord to direct my steps. And so how many of us do that when it comes to our exercise and our sleep and our diet? If we were listening to the Lord on those things, would you really eat the Pop-Tart? If we were listening to the Lord on that thing, would we really eat the refined carbohydrates? Are we going to do you really think you really have to have the dessert? Do you need the Snickers bar? Is that what we really need? Do we have to drink the Coke? When you're drinking the Coke, if you're drinking a Coke right now, are you drinking a Coke because you're listening to the Lord and that's what the Lord told you to do? Are you loving the Lord with all your heart and soul? If you're loving the Lord with all your heart and soul, do you find any contradiction between the Coke and loving the Lord with all of your heart and soul? Or have you negotiated your way out of that? Have you separated those things? Have you said to yourself, those two things aren't equal? What are you talking about? You're full of crap, Jason. You shouldn't say that like that. Those two things aren't equal. I can have a Coke and still love the Lord with all my soul and my heart. Really? Can we do that? Can we take this vessel that we're supposed to take care of and do that with it? What the wages of sin are death. What does Coke lead to? Death. So can we reverse engineer that and say maybe where was that something that I should be doing? What about the sugar? What about the sleep? Am I going to stay up? How late am I going to stay up tonight? It's like such an awesome. It's like so simple. It's like so simple if you have time to stop, and you have time to actually stop and think about what you're doing, and you really stop for just a second, and you say to yourself, when we went to lunch and we just ate all that crap that I didn't even pay any attention to loving the Lord with all my heart and all my soul and all my strength. I just took a break from that scripture. I just was a little tired, and I just took a break from that scripture, and I said, I don't need to do that. I don't really need to love the Lord with all my heart and all my soul and all my strength. I think I'll just have a Coke. And it's like, oh. And you think, well, that's Old Testament stuff, right? That's not New Testament stuff. That's just Old Testament stuff, except they asked Jesus the same question. What is of all the commandments, which is the one that is the most important? Have you ever heard that before? It says, this is in Mark 12, verse 28. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, of all the commandments, which of these is the most important? The most important one, he answered, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He just takes Deuteronomy 6, it just repeats it. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. He put mind and with all your strength. The second of this is love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. So now all of a sudden it's like, wow. So Jesus confirmed what was already said in Deuteronomy when he got into Mark, and he just repeated the whole thing. And it's like there is some wisdom in that. There is some wisdom in that we can learn. If we were really thinking about loving the Lord with all of our heart, how much healthier could we be? How much healthier could we be? How much healthier could our kids be? How much healthier could we be all the way through? When do you stop giving up? When do you stop caring and you give up on your health? I haven't reached that point yet, but I see older people and they get to a certain point and they just give up. And they're like, you know what? I'm just going to go out to this place and I'm just going to eat this food. And I know it's bad for me, but I'm going to eat it anyway because I don't have that many more days to live. One of my patients, her dad is 98. And they took him out to dinner or to lunch this weekend, and he wanted barbecue and white potato, mashed potatoes, and 2 rolls. And it's like, he's 98. Who cares, right? Is there a time that we give up somewhere along the way? Because is there a time where we just say? Because I think what happened to me in the middle part of my life so far. In my younger days, I didn't even know better, so I didn't know that I didn't know. But then I got to a point where I knew, but I didn't obey. And I spent 20 years of my life in that realm. And now that I've gotten past that realm, it's kind of like, wow, like this is so much better. I wish I wish I would have learned it. I don't know. I wish I would have done this when I was 30. Why the 30 from 50 range? It's like, no, it's just like crap. It's like what was I thinking from 30 to 50? I can't explain it. I wasn't focused on that scripture. I wasn't listening to the Lord. And I don't know how much better my life could have been had I been doing that. I can't do anything about yesterday, so all I can do is I can move forward, right? You can't do anything about yesterday. You can't fix yesterday. We can't beat Colorado. We already lost that game, right? That game's over. We got to move to the next game. We can either sit here and gripe about it all day long, which some of us do, or we can say, you know what, that's over. We got to move forward. And so, what can I do about today? What can I do about the rest of today? What am I going to eat when I get home? What time am I going to go to sleep when I get home? How much of my energy am I going to spend trying to fulfill that scripture? When I go to bed tonight, am I going to say that prayer? When I wake up this morning, tomorrow morning, am I going to say that prayer? Am I going to start my day and end my day with those things in my mind? I think I can, and I started it last night, which was it took me to a whole nother level today. It took me to a level of thought. It took me to a level of purity in my soul, in my strength, inside my body. It took me to getting away from all of the stuff that we have. We are junkies for information, but not on doing. We want information. That was what I meant to was trying to say a while ago. Is that listen to this scripture and do. That's what that scripture says. Listen to this. Do this. Right? And we've got so much information, but we forget to do. We don't want to do that. Information without application leads to deception. That's what Pastor Pollitt said yesterday. Information without application leads to deception. Information with application leads to transformation. We've got to take action on the things that we know. And it's almost to the point where a lot of us, not all of us, because I know we got a big spectrum of people out there, a few of you and me could probably just take a break from information. We might could take a 3-month break or a 6-month break or a 1-year break from information. We probably have enough information at this point to just apply it, to just do the information. We don't need any more information on B vitamins. We don't need any more information on magnesium. We don't need any more information on omega-6-3 ratio. We don't need any more information on proprioception coming into the brain. Some of us can just take what we know right now and apply it, right? Information without that application is going to lead to deception. We're going to get deceived because all we're going to do is we're just going to think about getting more information all the time. But if we will take that information and we will apply it, and we will apply it in a way with all of our strength and all of our soul and all of our mind and with all of us, we're going to take all of us into this realm of health. We're going to say, I'm going to put all of it in there because I love the Lord. Because that's really what I'm trying to do. Because how can I say that I love the Lord? Let me get it right. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. How can I say that I'm doing that and then not do that in the realm of health? I think there's probably a contradiction there that can't be done. I don't necessarily think that we can love the Lord with all of our heart and not be healthy. Because not being healthy takes action steps to not be healthy. You don't accidentally not be healthy. You physically can't do that. That would be called fasting. I mean, I guess you could do it if you fasted for long enough. You could make yourself unhealthy, but you have to actually take an action step. I have to take an action step in order to eat bad food. So I have to actually apply. I have to move and do that choice. I have to make a choice to not go to bed tonight. I have to make that choice. It's like, it's an action. So I'm actually making an action step that's moving me away from health. And I don't see where, I'm not trying to make food our religion. By no means do I think food should be your religion. By no means do I think exercise should be your religion. But by no means do I think sleep should be your religion or chiropractic should be your religion. None of those things should take the place of your listening to the Lord. That's the number one thing. But I'm not sure that we've ever, some of us, you guys that do all this stuff, you're probably thinking that boy's so far behind. And that's true. Maybe I'm just now coming to the party. Maybe I'm just now finally realizing it's like, man, putting all this stuff together. I can't love the Lord with all my strength and make the choices to make myself sicker. I can't do that, right? We are in a dangerous place now with this massive amount of information. That's what I wrote down. We use a distinction between listening and obeying. Back in the day, listening and obeying was the same word, Shema. He was talking about how there's, 40,000 words in the English language or something, and there was 8,000 words in the Hebrew. It was like those two words were the same. We use it. We make it. If you listen and you obey in our language today, that's two separate things. We listen or we obey, or we obey. But that's two different things. But back in the day, it was the same thing. It's like that's what the Lord was saying, because it was implied that if you were actually listening, you would obey. So they didn't have to use two separate words, because it was like, dude, you heard that, do it. Right? That's what he was pointing out yesterday. The Lord is one, therefore listen and obey to one. Listen to your source. What's the Lord telling you? What's the Lord telling you that you should be doing? And I'll present for consideration to all the people out there that maybe there's a time in your life, maybe that 20-year period of time. I don't think so. I'm not trying to argue for this point, but there may be a time in your life where there's what the Lord's telling you to do is irrelevant to the nutrition that you're putting in your body. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're not ready for that. Maybe you're not ready to be able to handle it. Maybe you don't have the skill set to do it all at the same time. That's why you can't make the food your religion. You can't make the food your religion and your religion your religion because you don't have enough skill set to do them both at the same time. So listen to the Lord. Listen to that voice. And I know when you're young, you don't know what that means. Sometimes it's harder, or maybe young is not necessarily a chronological statement, but a spiritual statement. It's like you're at a point in your spiritual walk that you don't know what that means. You're not listening to that voice. The longer you are in your spiritual walk, the more you'll know that voice when you hear it. You'll know when it's right and when it's wrong. You'll know when you need to put that phone down and you need to go for a walk, or you know when you need to put that phone down and you need to go to sleep. And you know when you're not listening. You know when you're not listening. You know when you're skipping that. And then Psalms 95, 7 and 8. I've listened. I've had this lots of times. Psalms 95, 7 and 8, and even to 9. It's today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in Meribah. However you say that. Do not, as you did that day in Massah in the desert, where your fathers tested and tried me, though they had seen what I did. It says, today, if you hear his voice, enter his rest. If you hear his voice, you will enter his rest. Then there, I believe there's another in the New Testament in Acts. There's a place right there. And then we just got like a minute left. He pointed out that in the garden, it was the first sin, not listening. They didn't listen to the voice of the Lord. They listened to another one. They listened to that serpent when they said, you don't have to, you can eat from this tree. Don't worry about that. And the Lord already told them not to do that. That's that voice that comes with, and I think we all have that, regardless of where we are in our walk. I think we have that thing. So just try some of this on tonight. See how it fits you. See if it makes any difference in the way that you function tomorrow. See if it improves your health. By tying these things together, listen to the Lord. Let him direct your steps. Let him direct your steps in the way that you should go. And see if you can and make those two things fit together. Your health and your spiritual life fit together. And if you do that with all your strength and all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, you might find out that you'll make yourself healthier. That's all I got for you tonight. I hope some of that was good. And we'll be back tomorrow night at 6. You guys have a great evening.